This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Thursday, November 12th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Thank you so much for joining us. Ahead today, state leaders across the country moving to take action as coronavirus cases rise sharply throughout America. We're going to talk to our CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson about what comes next and why we are better prepared to fight the virus than we were earlier this year. We're also hearing from a former associate commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration about the new vaccine for the virus and his outlook for the future of the Affordable Care Act after it was challenged at the Supreme Court this week. And he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, but now he has a message of love and reconciliation from the Bible. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin this half hour with the ongoing surge of coronavirus cases across the country, with Texas becoming the first state Wednesday with more than 1 million confirmed cases, and California closing in on that number. In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo says all restaurant, bars, and gyms across the state will have to close at 10 p.m. starting Friday. And he banned private gatherings of more than 10 people. George Thomas reports on the measures governors across the country are taking and how all this could affect the Thanksgiving holiday.
The virus is spiraling out of control. All 50 states seeing rising infection rates with more than 1 million new confirmed cases in the first 10 days of this month and more than 150,000 in a 24-hour period. Health experts say unless strict measures are taken to control its spread, the infections will keep rising. Wisconsin, among several states setting records this week for new cases, deaths, and hospitalization. The governor asking folks to stay home again.
It took us 7.5 months to get to 100,000 cases, but it only took 36 days to add another 100,000.
In Illinois, restrictions and curfews now in place for 4 suburban Chicago counties, bringing more economic pain to local businesses already reeling from 10 months of losses.
I mean, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be crushing, especially to people. The holidays are the busiest times for everyone.
Texas, the state with the most infections, 1 million plus people testing positive for the virus.
Texas, unfortunately, is leading the country now in patients in the hospital as well as number of cases.
The numbers so bad in the Lone Star State that in El Paso, ground zero for the epidemic, patients being treated in dozens of tents across the city. FEMA deploying mobile morgues to hold bodies as the death rate soars in the city. The new surge in infection stretching other states and their hospitals to its limits.
I tell you this in all sincerity, Oklahoma. We are in trouble. Our local and state healthcare resources are approaching their limits. And if nothing is done soon to slow the rise in cases, our hospitals will be more overwhelmed than they already are, and we won't be able to be there for all of those who need it.
Meanwhile, in Nevada, officials say they have the next 2 weeks to get the virus under control or prepare for another lockdown.
If we don't come together at this moment, I will be forced to take stronger action in 14 days.
Ohio and other states now enforcing a mask mandate.
We know that masks work. They are the easiest, most cost-effective way to limit the spread of COVID-19.
Some states like Oregon prepared this time around to handle the rising volume of cases.
We are better prepared today than we were in February when we identified our first COVID-19 patient.
With Thanksgiving 2 weeks away, the CDC issuing new guidelines urging Americans to stay home and not travel. And if you do gather, do it outdoors and keep the numbers small.
So if you know you're going to go to family gatherings where there's going to be especially older relatives that could be sick or more vulnerable, that maybe that means that for the week or two preceding, you should do less of especially unnecessary types of things.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Our medical reporter Lori Johnson is here with a closer look at the latest on the virus. So why is this outbreak different from what we saw earlier in the year?
Well, the main reason, Ephraim, is because it is so widespread in all 50 states. You know, earlier this year, we saw a huge outbreak in New York City, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Then we saw it move down to Florida and Texas while the Northeast got a little bit better. Now we're seeing increased cases across the board everywhere. We're seeing more hospitalizations now than ever before, ever during the history of the pandemic. We're seeing more than 60,000. So, we saw a terrible situation in New York, but that got better. So now it's more across the board, and some of these case rates are really climbing. And so, earlier when you and I talked, we talked about just the fact that there are an increased number of cases doesn't necessarily mean that there's that much reason for concern, because so many of the times these are young people who get better right away. But now we're seeing the increased hospitalizations, and that is a real red flag, a real warning, especially as we head into the holiday season.
So we know government leaders right now are pushing masks very heavily. What other protective measures might we see?
Well, there have been suggestions that people only have 10 people in their homes for Thanksgiving. You shudder at thinking, how would they enforce this thing? We don't want the police coming door to door and counting the number of people in our homes. It's a suggestion. And for people who are traveling, it is suggested that if you travel somewhere that you sort of isolate for 10 or 14 days beforehand. The governor of Ohio, who's a Republican, by the way, has said that businesses that don't enforce their mask mandates will be shut down for 24 hours. That's really shocking, considering it comes from a very, very red governor, as we might say. So the CDC, by the way, speaking of masks, said that new information shows that masks now protect the wearer. Before, they said that it really was only the other person wearing the mask does the protecting. So that's good news.
That is good news. Now, even if the virus is spreading more widely than before, are we more prepared now than we were to deal with it?
Much more prepared. I spoke with a doctor yesterday who said, a lot of these hospital systems have worked out plans with nearby healthcare systems so that if, for example, one hospital doesn't have enough beds, they can transfer their patients to the nearby hospital. Let's say one hospital doesn't have enough nurses, they can share, but the problem, of course, Ephraim, begins, what if all the hospitals are overloaded? What if none of the hospitals have extra personnel to spare and share? So it's better now. We obviously have really great therapeutics, and so we know that there are hospital stays have decreased, and the vaccine is on the way. So we are in much better shape now than we were back in March and April.
Yeah, you mentioned the vaccine. We heard some good news about that earlier this week, but now some pro-life groups are concerned about how certain vaccines are developed. Can you tell us more about that?
Right. So some vaccines were developed using cell lines from aborted fetuses. So we're talking not about the Pfizer vaccine, and that's the one that we heard so much about recently, not the Moderna one, and we expect to hear good news coming out of Moderna very soon, but we are talking about AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. These are cell lines that came from two separate aborted babies. About 50 years ago, these abortions took place. The cells from these aborted babies were modified in a way that they continually reproduce all these many years later. And these cell lines have been used for some vaccine development, and not just COVID-19 vaccines, but some other vaccines and therapeutics.
All right, Lori Johnson, thank you so much for the insight. Always appreciate it.
Sure.
On the road to the White House, Joe Biden has chosen his longtime advisor, Ron Klain, to come back as his chief of staff. Klain has decades of experience, and he would be leading a likely White House consumed by the response to the coronavirus. Klain last year talked about how the Obama administration handled the swine flu outbreak back in 2009.
I was in the White House in 2009, 2010. I was working for Vice President Biden. I wasn't involved directly in the H1N1 response, but I lived through it as a White House staffer. And what I will say about it is a bunch of really talented, really great people working on it, and we did every possible thing wrong. And it's, 60 million Americans got H1N1 in that period of time, and it's just purely a fortuity that this isn't one of the great mass casualty events in American history. Had nothing to do with us doing anything right, just had to do with luck.
Clayton also served as the coordinator for the Ebola response during the 2014 outbreak. He would also face the challenge of working with a divided Congress, including what will likely be a Republican-controlled Senate, along with the House of Representatives, where Republicans made significant gains during this year's elections. Coming up, we're going to hear from a former Associate Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration about why he thinks the Pfizer vaccine could be what he calls a game changer, and his thoughts on the future of the Affordable Care Act when we come back.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Ephraim Graham. Welcome to Studio 5.
Get on it.
All that's new and now in the world of uplifting entertainment with celebrity interviews.
There's a higher contribution I will make.
Musical performances.
I'll give you my best praise.
Plus movie and TV news.
See it and be uplifted.
On Studio 5. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern at cbn.com/Studio 5.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Wall Street investors were not the only ones elated to hear the good news this week about a COVID-19 vaccine. Many medical professionals say they were amazed about the Pfizer drug company's success in combating the virus. Preliminary results show a 90% prevention effectiveness rate among trial volunteers receiving the vaccine. Peter Pitts is the co-founder of the Center for Medicine in the Public Interest and a former FDA Associate Commissioner. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, he calls the Pfizer vaccine a game changer.
Clearly, there's still a lot of data to be given to the FDA for review, but I think that we could have a emergency use authorization for Pfizer, potentially before Thanksgiving, certainly before the end of the year. And that means that we can begin to inoculate healthcare workers and essential workers. And then after that, probably early in 2021, we can roll it out to older Americans and people with underlying serious healthcare conditions, and of course, everybody else. And I think that the 90% number is good for lots of reasons. One, it's going to work. It's highly effective. But also, I think that's going to influence people as to the value and importance of vaccinations in general, and especially for COVID-19. We've got to get the vaccination rates up above 60% for the general population if we really want to get the job done. 90% really is an astounding percentage. It's the holy grail when it comes to vaccines. And I think what it tells us is the new types of technologies that we're talking about, mRNA, for example, messenger RNA, which is how the Pfizer vaccine is manufactured, allows us to manufacture these vaccines safer, faster, less expensively, and we can scale up globally more quickly. So we're really hitting all of our bases here relative to what needs to get done.
Many people still say they won't get the vaccine. Just how safe do you expect it to be? What about potential long-term health risks?
I'm very excited and very positive about the safety profile of the Pfizer vaccine. The FDA is really doing its job. They're demanding 2 months worth of data, which is a little more than is generally expected. And that's, I think, a good thing considering the severity of the pandemic and the importance of a vaccine. If people don't think they should get vaccinated, they need to listen to the facts, protect themselves, their families, their communities, their states, and our nation. Unless we all get behind this and get vaccinated, it's not going to have the desired robust effect of stomping COVID-19 to the ground and allowing us to return to normal activity on a regular basis. I think the 90% rate will convince people it's the right thing to do. I think that putting all of our politics aside and doing the right thing is crucial here. We've got to all get vaccinated and as early as possible. And by the way, that also holds true for the flu.
What do you think of Joe Biden's choices to lead his advisory group on COVID-19, Doctors David Kessler, Vivek Murthy, and Marcela Nunez-Smith?
I think they're good choices. These are people that really know their business. I would have liked to have seen a smoother transition. In other words, some of the people currently on the president's COVID-19 task force could have been engaged, but I guess there are political issues that are making that difficult. But I think that the team that Joe Biden has put together is a solid team. They're going to do the right thing. They recognize the importance of vaccinations and the alacrity of getting people vaccinated and convincing people and educating people as to the safety of vaccines. I think we've got to talk to communities of color. They have traditional suspicions of government-run healthcare programs. We've got to deal with that respectfully. We've got to deal with people that don't think that vaccines are really that important. We've got to educate them. And as for the people that don't believe in vaccines, who think that they're dangerous, I think we've got to talk to them as well. We've got a big public education effort ahead of us. And I hope that Joe Biden talks about that sooner rather than later, because a community, a nation that's excited about the vaccine will get vaccinated, and a nation that has suspicions won't. We have to make sure that every American wants to get vaccinated and as quickly as possible. I'm going to be the first one in line when I'm available to get a vaccine.
And what do you think of a possible federal government mandate for mask wearing?
I think he can certainly do it. I don't think it's going to be effective. You can't make people do things they don't want to do. We have to convince people that it's the responsible thing to do to wear masks, to maintain proper social distancing, and to practice enhanced personal hygiene. Unless they're going to hire, 1 million new police officers to write people tickets who aren't wearing masks, it's not going to happen. But there is value, obviously, in using the bully pulpit to convince people, to cajole people, to plead with people, to ask people to please wear masks because it's the right thing to do. And it is. I would hate to see the movement towards a federal mandate further create polarization in our nation relative to the science behind mask wearing.
And how about the future of national health insurance and Obamacare under a Biden presidency? The Supreme Court will be deciding the law's constitutionality now that there's no insurance mandate. So what might happen?
The Supreme Court is not going to rule the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, unconstitutional. I think that that President-elect Biden, soon to be President Biden, if that holds up, will certainly try to amend it because time marches on. Obviously, there are problems with the ACA, big problems. Hopefully, as one of the designers of the legislation, he can see that and try to make it better.
Okay, former FDA Associate Commissioner Peter Pitts, thank you for your expertise and for sharing your insights.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And for more of this interview and others, you can see the Global Lane this evening at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and you can find that on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, he was a domestic terrorist, a former member of the Ku Klux Klan, but he has a message of love and reconciliation from the Bible. We're going to have his story for you when we come back.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times best-selling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
He was a domestic terrorist sentenced to 30 years for planting a bomb at the home of a civil rights leader back in 1968. Want to look back at a conversation from last year that John Jessup had with a former Ku Klux Klan member about the hatred and violence in America today and who he says must confront it. Here again is John Jessup's story.
I heard lots of sermons. I went to Sunday school regularly. I even made a profession of faith when I was 13 years old.
Listening to Tom Terrence, it's hard to imagine the soft-spoken preacher once served time in prison and survived 4 gunshot wounds in an FBI shootout before landing a 30-year sentence for planting a bomb at the home of the civil rights leader in 1968.
I hated black people, I hated Jews, I hated liberals, and on and on.
That hatred eventually drew him to the Ku Klux Klan.
My school had been selected for desegregation, and I became very angry about it.
In prison, Tom began a search for truth and deeper meaning that ultimately led him to the Bible. He became a Christian and acknowledged his sordid past.
I certainly deserved to die. I had deserved to go to hell for my sins. But in His great mercy, God spared my life.
Tom's faith grew with the help of prominent Christians like Billy Graham and Chuck Colson, founder of Prison Fellowship. He abandoned his racist ideology, and after an unexpected early prison release, Tom saw an amazing turnaround, eventually co-pastoring a multi-ethnic church in Washington, D.C., and leading a global ministry devoted to making Christian disciples.
It's not impossible for people who hold some basic Christian beliefs to embrace this kind of extremist narrative that I did.
Now, some 50 years later, Tom sees another cultural collision facing America. He reveals similarities between then and now in his new book, Consumed by Hate, Redeemed by Love.
I saw all of this as a kind of war, fighting for God and country.
A viewpoint still evident today.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
He points to April's deadly shooting at a California synagogue as an example of white nationalism growing on the internet and how it's worked its way onto college campuses and even inside some churches.
A young man raised in a Presbyterian church, Orthodox Presbyterian church, I should say, fell into this type of thinking and put them together and then went and shot up a synagogue.
He calls on churches to confront this evil and believes the key to change is at the core of true Christian values.
Just teach the Bible. Teach what Jesus taught about loving God with all your heart, and soul and mind and strength, and loving your neighbor. All the different races and ethnicities and political perspectives. We're called to love one another.
A message and a calling he says is more urgent now than ever. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
And we'll be back with an encouraging word for your day ahead right after this. Stay with us.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I leave you with this prayer of gratitude. Father, I thank you that salvation is a free gift, and I fully embrace that my obedience is the grind. Now that I have salvation, I must do the work that pleases you. With that word, I encourage you to make today a thankful Thursday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love for you to email us, newswatch@cbn.com, and reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.